talking side of this, and I'm not really used to doing that. But right when I start going live, it like sends people a notification that I'm on, so it might be a couple minutes before we have anybody join. But for those of you who are on here, thank you so much for joining to the first ever Q&A Kid Catholic live stream. I've never done one of these. Wow, I was like paused for 20 seconds just now seeing that. I've never done one of these, so I'm super excited, and while we're bored in quarantine, what a better time to do so than now. So for those of you who are here, I want to say thank you, and if you all want to start typing your questions in the comments, I will get to them again. We're going to have a few more people join us in a bit, so I'll give people some more time to get on. Again, I've never done a live one, all the Q&As I've done, so I'm a little nervous as to what questions might be asked, because all the Q&As I've done pre-recorded, and then obviously I've done Q&As at talks before as well. So for the few of you who are on right now, and if you're watching the replay, because I know that we'll have quite a few people watch the replay, if you're watching the replay, then one of your questions might be answered in this, and I can't get to it now, obviously. But for those of you who are watching, please type in the comments any questions that you might have. I'm looking right now, that's why I keep looking down. So yeah, let's wait and see what questions we get. I remember this one talk I gave to a middle school. Middle schoolers are, when I give talks, middle schoolers do not ask questions. Especially in high schoolers and middle schoolers, they're not as good as asking questions. And so I was having to like beg for questions toward the end, because I left like 5 to 10 minutes for questions only. So if you have any questions about my ministry, about what I do, about a theological question that you might have, because I feel like the same thing here, right? But again, we are going to give a few more minutes for people to get on. We've only been live for a couple minutes now. See if the audio is good. Yes. So someone asked, what's up? That's the closest to a question I've gotten. Nothing much. Or a lot, depending on how I look at it. Been pretty busy lately. For those of you who might know, I've been streaming all of my masses, all of my church's masses, and services, and Stations of the Cross and rosaries and things like that. Do you want to be a priest when you grow up? The thing with that is, right now, I don't really like giving definitive answers on that, because again, we never know what God might hold in our life, and I'm in our lives, when I'm just here praying for the vocation like the rest of us. So I never really like to give yes I do, no I don't, because we never know what might happen. And another question, what made you fall in love with your faith? Because most kids your age do not love Christ as much as you do. That's actually a really good question. And thank you guys for the questions so much. That was asked by Arik De La Grande. I've seen you comment on my videos before. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. But what made you fall in love with your faith? That's a really good question, because that's one that I get quite often, because it is true that a lot of teens, a lot of high schoolers, we aren't really as involved in our faith as we should be. And honestly, I think the reason for that is my upbringing. Because I feel like a lot of teens and a lot of parents tell their kids what the Catholic Church does and bring them to Mass and what we do, which is awesome, but we never really get explained why we do it. Why we do what we do, because as Catholics, we have a reason behind everything, right? And so when we go to Mass, when we receive the Eucharist, we have a reason behind that. We don't just do stuff to do stuff. And so I always explain the why really well. And it made me fall in love with my faith, because I realized this is the one true faith, because we have a reason for doing everything, unlike the others, right? And so I think that's what made me truly passionate and fall in love with my faith, and build that relationship with God, because at the end of the day, building that relationship with God is what makes us fall in love with our faith, but we have to have motivation to get there. And so I think explaining to kids and explaining to teens the why behind our faith is a lot better way to achieve them to fall in love with their faith. So that's a really good question, thank you. What inspired you to do this is another question I got. When talking about what inspired me to do this, honestly, it started about 3.5 years ago, kind of on accident. I didn't really start it with the intention of a Catholic channel at first. There was a friend of mine who had introduced me to YouTube, and he had a channel of his own, and I knew from the very first moment that I didn't just want to watch, I wanted to create. And there are a ton of awesome Catholic channels on YouTube, but they were either like only for adults or only for kids, and I wanted to do something where everyone could sit down and learn, and so I just started my channel thinking that I knew everything, right? I've learned so much more from this than I ever thought I could. But then I started giving talks, and honestly, it wasn't like it started with the intention of giving talks and doing all that, but it didn't really start with that intention, but it has led me there through God and through the strength of God, and he has absolutely willed me to where I am right now, so I'm very thankful for that. And so I would absolutely say my number one inspiration for this was, I know this sounds cliche and kind of generic, but God, you know, because I ended up somewhere where I never thought I could be, and it's all because of him, so I'm very thankful for that. Another question. What advice do you have for other teens trying to be a resource online for youth as you are? How did you spread the word about your channel? I recently started a blog, and I'm struggling to get it up. So what advice do you have for other teens trying to be a resource online for youth as you are? Well, I want to say first off, that is awesome that you're starting a blog. That is absolutely incredible, because right now online is used for a lot of negative things, and it absolutely could be used for positive things. Absolutely. And so we really need to change the internet from negative to positive. So it's awesome that you're doing that. But what advice I would have is, well, first off, it's hard being a teen starting anything up like that for a multitude of reasons, right? First off, it's hard to get the exposure out there. Second off, it's hard because no one might take you seriously, right? But here's some advice that I would say in order to really spread the word, because in order to have a successful blog like that, in order to have a successful resource online, you need to spread the word. I would say be proud of it. Don't make it something that you like try to hide about yourself, right? Like, tell people about it. When they introduce yourself, be like, hey, I have a blog, you should go check it out. Second off, having new content a lot is really, really important, because if you just post the same thing, then people aren't going to stay interested, so that's really, really important. But I would also say being passionate about it is the number one thing. Being passionate about it and praying about it are the number one things, because in order to have that resource online, get the word out there, you won't achieve that without God. So I would say be passionate about it, pray about it, and with time you'll get there. I'm doing this for 3.5 years, right? So it has taken a lot of time, and I'm very grateful for all of it. Next question, why did you become Kid Catholic? I sort of explained that earlier a little bit as to why I started this channel. If you're talking about the name specifically Kid Catholic, that was my brother and I. We were in a Walmart parking lot, and he was like, what about the Catholic kid? And I was like, Kid Catholic, because it like rolls off the tongue really well, you know? Have you ever went to an Eastern Catholic Mass? Not that I recall. For all I know, I could have when I was little, but I don't think I have been. I think I've been the Western Mass. If you were trying to convince someone who is unsure of his existence that God was real, what is the first thing you would tell him? Ooh, okay. So what is the first thing you would tell him? This is a really good question. And I've kind of gained like a lot of inspiration from this, from the movie God's Not Dead. I really love that movie when, you know, the professor is trying to prove that God doesn't exist and the student's trying to prove that it does. But your question is, what is the first thing I would tell them? Well, there's a multitude of things I would tell them overall, but the first thing I would tell them was, your claim is, if God created you, then who created God? That's an argument that they use a lot, right? So I would say, if the universe created you, who created the universe? Because it's not impossible to think of an all-time creator. We could keep going back as to who created the universe and then who created them and who created them. The truth is, at some point for this to start, there has to be somewhere where there was no beginning, right? There just has to be. It only makes logical sense for there to be somewhere where there was no beginning. And for there to just be dust floating around and then a big bang and then existence, it does not make sense. There has to be somewhere where there wasn't a beginning, and God is that no beginning. God did not have a beginning, and he created us out of nothing because there was nothing, right? Because a lot of times their argument is, well, there was a big bang, there was a lot of particles floating together, that doesn't make sense. How did those particles get there, you know? So the first thing I would tell them was, the universe created you, who created the universe? Because it makes logical sense to think about it that way. The next question is, where did you get your name from, like the name Kid Catholic? I'm assuming that was asked after I'd already explained, but yeah, so I explained that one. How long are you going to be Kid Catholic? That is a very good question. I'm hoping to be Kid Catholic for as long as possible, right? Like, I want to do this with my life as a career. And so I'm super excited about that. And I want to expand to more things besides just YouTube, like what I'm kind of starting to do, like giving talks to various churches and in parishes and events. Like I've given a talk at the Catholic Family Conference, Midwest Catholic Family Conference at NCYC, places like that, right? So I want to expand on that, and I want to do this for a living and be Kid Catholic for as long as I can. Another question we have is, what church do you go to? I'm kind of like, if you reveal what church you go to, you kind of reveal where you live, which YouTube I'm not planning on doing. However, for those of you who do know me personally, you would know that question. I will say, though, I have been live streaming my church's events, masses, Stations of the Cross, rosaries, things like that. That's a lot of questions so far. Thank you guys very much for that. If you want to send a couple more, still have some time. Yeah, these are awesome questions. These are a lot. I talked a little bit earlier about the middle school I gave a talk to, and how it was very hard to get questions out of them. But thank you all for the questions. These have been very good. Again, the original plan was to do this an hour, so I could do this a little bit longer if you guys have more questions. And again, if it's about things besides my ministry, it can be theological things, theological teachings, whatever you might want to hear about. I'm going to go double check if I missed any questions. I don't think so. So yeah, thank you to the few of you who are watching. Someone I know said, I don't know where you go to church. Shake my head. Yeah, tough. Well, maybe you could ask me personally, and then, you know, crazy. Okay, who's your favorite Catholic apologist? That's a really good question. I have a lot. If I had to pick a favorite, I don't know how I'd pick a favorite, because there's Noelle Garcia, who I absolutely love. Some of you might know her. She gave a talk at Steubenville, at the Midwest Catholic Family Conference. There's obviously also Father Mike Schmitz, who we all probably know, right? Ascension Presents YouTube channel. He was a big inspiration for me. So there's a lot. I don't know how I could pick my favorite, but those two names are the first that come to mind. I'm going to highly recommend, if you haven't heard of them, looking them up and seeing some of their talks. Next question. It says, how would you... Okay, whoa, we got a lot of questions in a row right here. It said, what made you want to not homeschool? Okay, we have...
Hi.
Hi, Mom. What made you want to not homeschool? So it wasn't like anything that made me want to not homeschool. It was more me wanting to go to high school, right? Because it wasn't like I had anything against homeschooling. It was just at the time I wanted to go to high school and have that high school experience and be more involved with other people. And then I would say that it's actually made me even more deeper in my faith, right? Because I've seen how necessary it is to be an apologist in today's world. So it wasn't anything that made me want to not homeschool, but really just made me want to go to high school. Okay, we have a couple more. How would you respond to someone who said Catholics are not Christians? Well, let's see. I would say you're wrong. We were the first Christians. We started Christianity. All other Christian denominations broke off from Catholics. So to say that Catholics are not Christian is just completely absurd. Because we were the first Christians, we started the entire Christian religion, right? Catholics are the first Christians and the true Christians. So anyone who says that, I would just say you're wrong. Next question. Can you tell us something about how God did something for his people, like the Bible? So if you're looking for an example of when God did something for his people, I would absolutely use the biggest example. Obviously, there's a lot of Old Testament examples you could go into with God feeding them with the manna, which we talked about recently, or sort of allude to recently in the John 6 discourse. But biggest example I would give is obviously him sending Jesus Christ, his only son, to die for our sins and be persecuted for our sins. He sent his only son to suffer for us, which is just absolutely incredible. And it wasn't like he forced him into it, right? It was one of those things where it was like it was necessary, and he did it for us because he loves us. So I would say that is the number one prime example of God doing something for his people. Okay, what else is there? How do kids at school feel about your YouTube channel? That's a really good question. It's kind of mixed, and you can kind of see the kids who aren't really fond of it. But if I'm being honest, it really does not faze me, because I encourage everyone to not only watch my YouTube channel, but to also watch any apologetics, to be more involved in their Catholic faith from anyone, right? So I would say for those kids at school who don't really approve of it, I am praying for them. But then from everyone else, it's actually been a lot more supportive than I thought. I go to a Catholic school, so my friends, they all support me in it. And a lot of people at school actually watch it and support me, so I'm really appreciative of that. So that's a really good question. Who is your favorite saint? Ooh, I have a couple, okay? So I have two patron saints. I have Saint Mary Magdalene, who is just absolutely incredible. And then I have St. Clare of Assisi, and the reason for that is St. Mary Magdalene, I was lucky enough to visit Magdala, her home. There we go, we get that problem sometimes. Thought I'd turn that off, my bad. Anyway, I was lucky enough to visit St. Mary Magdalene's hometown in Magdala in Israel, and I was lucky enough to visit St. Clare of Assisi's hometown in Assisi, Italy. So those two I like to consider my patron saints. I highly recommend you look up their stories. St. Clare of Assisi was actually the saint of the week on this past episode, so if you want to go see that. Next question. How do you maintain all of your confidence and not care about what other people your age think about you talking about Catholicism? That's actually a really good question. And I want to say it's not like I'm just, completely strong and it doesn't faze me at all, right? Obviously, I'm still very human, and there's still sometimes that nervousness, that fear, like, oh, what are people going to say? But I've kind of realized that, like, if people, and I've learned this from experience, if people say things about this channel, if people criticize things about Catholicism in general, then the number one thing I can do is pray for them, right? And that's really all we can do. And so I think maintaining that confidence, if you're talking about like confidence to speak in front of people, that's just a natural thing that I've kind of always had. But if you're talking about confidence when it comes to not letting what other people say faze me, then I think really we need to know that those people who are attacking us for various things, it could be a multitude of things, right? We need to know that they are hurting too, and that the number one thing we can do is pray for them, and that in this case, they're not in the right? And we still have to love that person, as Jesus tells us. So I think that's the key to maintaining that confidence, is still saying, you know what, I'm going to pray for you, instead of getting upset about it, instead of letting it affect us, because sometimes things just affect us, and there's nothing we can do about that. But we need to try to fend that off, right? And pray for them. And I think that's the number one key. Someone said, I don't know if this is a question or not, so I'm just going to start reading. I said, that's smart. I once got told on Ash Wednesday by a boy in my grade that Catholicism is off-brand Christianity. I wish I knew what to say. Now I do for the future, so thank you. Of course, you're welcome, because we are the original Christians. We were the first Christians ever. Always have been, always will be. Next question. What is a Bible story or Bible verse that keeps you going? Ooh, I really like that one. So I would say my favorite Bible verse, I actually have it up on my website, is Matthew 4:19. It says, "Come follow me and I will make you fishers of men." And that's just always really stuck with me, and the reason for that is because I think that that's my main ministry. That's like my goal in life. Is to bring people closer to Christ. And so having that motivation that, like Jesus says, the only way we can do that is by following him, right? So it's not like I can just go astray from him and then bring other people closer to him. No, like he says, come follow me and I will make you fishers of men, which is what we all need to be, right? Whether we're evangelizing on YouTube or not, we all need to be fishers of men, even if it's just by having conversations, right? What that means is bringing people closer to the faith. So that's a Bible verse that's always motivated me, always kept me going throughout everything. Next question. Since you're a teen, are you going to change to Teen Catholic, or are you going to keep it Kid Catholic because of the audience you are reaching? Well, here's my thing about that. So I'm actually going to keep it Kid Catholic. For everything. Even when I'm an adult, I want to keep it Kid Catholic, right? But again, I want to make it more of a ministry, to where I become more Keating Emerson of Kid Catholic, but I want to keep it Kid Catholic through everything. I mean, it's not just about the audience I'm reaching, because I've also given talks to adult women's groups and things like that. So I want to expand my audience to everyone besides just kids, and Kid Catholic does make it seem like it's just for kids, but that's the origin of it, and that's how it started, is Kid Catholic. And so I absolutely want to keep that through everything, no matter what. So I'm not planning on changing to Teen Catholic, because, I mean, I'm still a legal kid, right? so I want to keep it that. Were you scared when you were on the Project YM Live? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Project YM Live is a live stream I did this past Sunday. And this was one with thousands of teens on it who were going to be watching. And it actually did gain me some teens watching, which is absolutely incredible. But I would say that that is absolutely the most nervous I've ever been, giving a talk or talking in front of a camera, right? Because normally I really, if I'm being honest, I don't. Like when I'm giving a talk in front of people, or in front of a lot of people, I really don't get that nervous. And obviously pre-recording this, doing this, I don't get that nervous. But it was something about the Project YM Live, knowing how many people were going to be watching, how many people were going to be seeing me. I would say it did make me a little nervous. However, I think it turned out great, and I'm very grateful. And absolutely, whenever we feel those nerves, again, we need to pray, because Jesus and prayer is the way we fend off those fears, that nervousness that we may be experiencing with anything. So I was pretty nervous, I'm not going to lie, but I was able to overcome it, and I think it turned out really well. Let's see, do we have anything else? It says I have to go. Thanks for answering all my questions. Okay, bye Jack Plays 18. Thank you for asking all those questions. It says, you were awesome on there. It was so cool. Thank you, Catholic Teen. I'm glad you watched. For those of you who haven't seen it, Project YM still has the replay up, so you can go to projectym.com/watch. If you want to see the replay of that broadcast, I gave like a 10-15 minute talk on fear and how we overcome fear, so if you want to go check that out, that'd be greatly appreciated. Next question says, what kinds of videos are you thinking of making in the near future? Well, in the near future, I want to obviously expand on apologetics. We might, depending on what happens, might have some more coronavirus videos. You never know. But also, I've started doing a lot more interviews as of lately, and events like this. So something that I want to start working on, especially in quarantine, is also putting out more content with things like this. So I'm looking to do that. But when it comes to topics, thinking of keeping it mostly like what I've been doing. But obviously, with the Catholic faith, there's so many things to talk about. You can never stop. There's like a billion topics, right? So it's not like I'm ever going to run out of anything. So absolutely expand on that. And I take viewer suggestions also. So if you have a suggested topic that you might want me to make a video on, I would be glad to do it if you just let me know. Okay, a couple more questions. Are you planning to make any more pro-life videos soon? My pro-life videos have actually seemed to be well liked by a lot of people. I actually, if there's another event that happens, something that happens, I'm obviously always wanting to make pro-life videos, because I think I want to make that a priority in what I do, because it is the biggest massacre in today's world, right? It's more of a serious problem than the coronavirus. It is so serious, and we need to combat it in so many ways. So I would absolutely love to make more pro-life videos. I don't have my videos like planned out by weeks, so we'll see what is to come, but that would be absolutely awesome, because I love making those types of videos. Do you watch Catholic Answers? I have seen a couple of what they do. I don't like consistently keep up with their videos. However, I know for a fact that they make awesome apologetic videos. So if you haven't checked out Catholic Answers, highly recommend you go over and watch them. Do you ever get hate for being a male pro-lifer? Yes. So I would say my YouTube, more online hate, right? It's nothing like in real life at school or anything, but it's one of those things where it's like, for example, I did the video, and like the most comments I've ever gotten in a video was maybe 30, and in that last pro-life video I did, I got over 400 of people attacking me personally, with not even good arguments. They were just attacking my looks. It's like, if you're gonna write a hate comment, at least make it be good, you know? But yes, I do get hate for being a male pro-lifer. However, it does not faze me at all, because my #1 goal is save the babies and save the innocent children. And a lot of people were like, you're 14, why do you care? And I think it does not matter the age, it does not matter the gender, it does not matter the race. We're all a part of the human race, and we all need to do whatever we can to protect every form of life. And so I do get hate for it. However, I do not let it faze me. Again, I try my best to pray for those people who are against it. what kind of apologetic YouTubers would you suggest? Well, a couple who actually aren't really on YouTube anymore, but if you want to go back and watch the old videos, are New Catholic Generation and That Catholic Couple. There's also Emma Lou Nicole, who is still going strong with her Catholic channel. I was lucky enough to meet her at NCYC, so if you want to go subscribe to her channel, check it out. There's a ton of awesome Catholic apologists like that. But those three, That Catholic Couple, obviously also Ascension Presents, but Emma Lou Nicole, those are names that pop out to me as YouTubers I would suggest, because there are a lot of us out here. Catholic YouTube is growing and it's awesome. What is the best way to ask or find out God to reveal his plan for you? So when I hear this question, to reveal his plan for you, I think when it comes to vocations. And so the best way to sort of have God reveal his plan for you, maybe not even with vocations, if we're young, it's sort of what it relates to, but if we're going through something, and we want God to like reveal that plan to us, I think the number one way to do this, and I know that this sounds simple and cliche and what everyone would say, but is prayer, right? Because think about it logically. God is supposed to be our best friend, right? God should absolutely be our best friend. Or in real life best friend. If we sit and have a conversation with our best friend, are we just the only one doing the talking? No, our best friend has to talk back, and we have to build that relationship, to build that friendship, right? We need to listen to our friend to hear what he or she is saying, right? It's the same thing with God. We need to listen to him to hear what he is saying. And unlike the saints and unlike the angels, we won't hear that with our ears, most likely, right? But we will hear it with our hearts. And so it's one of those things where once that plan is revealed, once you know, you know. And so there's no specific way to say, like, God, can I please have that plan right now? Because sometimes we might feel like that. Sometimes we might want that, right? But that is not what's necessary. Patience is a virtue, right? And so we have to trust in God. We have to have faith that eventually that plan will be revealed to us. Really the way to accomplish that is through prayer, any form of prayer, right? So that we can build that relationship with him. Next is, would you mind giving a shout out to Mrs. Ron and Mrs. Morris to screen record it and send it to them? They're the best religion teachers, and they're doing so much right now for us. Of course, shout out to Mrs. Ron and Miss Morris. Thank you so much for being awesome religion teachers. Our youth ministers, our religion teachers are so important in a time like this. So thank you to you guys, and keep going. Next is, do you watch anything on atheism? I think the number one thing is like, do I sit and watch YouTube videos? And to be honest, it's not one of those things where I have no idea what atheists believe. I know what atheists believe, and I don't believe it. Therefore, I don't sit and watch things on atheism. Because in my head, like I talked about a little bit ago, it's really illogical to believe things like that for a multitude of reasons. And so I don't sit and watch that, because I know what they believe, and I know it to not be true. Next is, what do you think about theology? I don't know if you're, I don't know what you're referencing here. If you're talking about the theology class at school, absolutely great. We love our theology teacher. If you're talking about, like, theology when it comes to religion and education on it, then it's great. I'm not really sure what you're trying to ask. Instead, what about Taylor Marshall? Taylor Marshall has some great videos. That's great. Yeah, go check her out too. I actually haven't. Him. Go check him out too. I was just about to say, I haven't heard of Taylor Marshall, so I'm sorry, Taylor, for doing that. I have not heard of Taylor Marshall. But now, thank you, Bob. But now hearing about him, I will definitely check him out, because I'm gonna be honest, I did not hear about him. So I would definitely check him out. How do you feel about Christian rap? As long as it is Christian clean rap, because the name of God and cuss words should not be used in the same song at all. Well, cuss words obviously shouldn't be used in general, but you know what I mean. As long as it's that, then Christian rap is great. I don't know a lot of Christian rap artists. Do you ever debate people on church teachings? Unfortunately, being 14, I don't debate people on church teachings. When I think about, like, debating someone on this, I think like Ben Shapiro standing behind a podium debating someone, like, just absolutely things like that. I don't like debate people on church teachings or debate an atheist or anything like that. I more teach it, right? I'm in a way to any sort of events, so it's more like theological and apologetic videos, explaining it more than it is debating against someone. Theology in general. Okay, if you mean like theology in general, like the teachings of the church, because that's what theology is the Catholic Church's teachings. If you're referring to that, then I don't know specifically what you're asking about them. But I would say that they're awesome, and I believe in all of them. I believe in anything the Catholic Church teaches. Again, if you all want to ask some more questions, I know that my thing is kind of slow here, so I might not get it as quickly. But still have about 30 minutes if you guys want to ask more. Catholic Teen asks, what's your favorite type of music and favorite song? I don't listen to music enough to have a favorite type. But I would say my favorite song is one that I heard at NCYC, and it is by For King and Country, and it's called Joy. I would either say For King and Country, Joy, or Amen. Again, I don't listen to enough music to have a certain type, but I would say those two are my favorite songs. If I do listen to music, I listen to that. Joy and Amen by For King and Country. Absolutely incredible. I highly recommend you go listen to it. What about on live streams or in comments? No, I don't like to debate people in comments, because I think that online debates go a bit too far. And I think that really the key to having a healthy debate is by sitting down and having a discussion with someone instead of having an argument with someone. And so I don't get in online debates, because I think it's pointless, because I think it only leads to bad things. They are not, in my opinion, a healthy form of debate. So I do not get in online debates, and this is really the only live stream I've ever done interacting with people, so I don't do it on live streams either. Okay, next question. If you have any non-Catholic friends and they debate you about purgatory, what would you say? So I'm assuming you are in this situation. If you are, I would say my one thing for purgatory is it only makes logical sense that it exists, right? And I could talk forever about purgatory, so I'm just going to sum it up really quickly. The thing that I would say is God is all merciful. We know from the Bible that nothing unclean can enter heaven. It's just impossible for anything unclean to enter heaven. We have to be fully clean in order for us to enter heaven, right? And purgatory is not a place of judgment where we are judged about heaven or hell. Purgatory is a place of cleansing, right? And even though it is a form of temporary punishment in that cleansing, it's not a perfect happy one, right? But it is a cleansing so that we can enter heaven fully clean. Now, if we were to have venial sins on our soul and die, since nothing unclean could enter heaven, would God just send us to hell? No, that's not right, because what if we just committed one tiny venial sin before we died and we're really a super good person? But since nothing unclean can enter heaven, would God send us to hell? No, it doesn't make sense. And again, I'm not one to say who gets into heaven and who doesn't. That is absolutely God at the last judgment. But purgatory is that place where we can be cleansed before entering heaven. If someone were to have a tiny venial sin on their soul, even though all sins are terrible, when they die, purgatory would be the place where they get that off of their soul, and they get those sins off of their soul so that they can enter heaven. And so it only makes logical sense that purgatory exists. And we see a lot of evidence of purgatory in the Bible. So that's what I would say to them. What is your favorite conference/retreat? Ooh, this is a tough one. I cannot pick one. I'll name 3 that I consistently go to, or 2 that I consistently go to, and 1 that I'm going to start consistently going to. And that is Steubenville. I've only been to Steubenville once, because again, it's for high schoolers. But if it's not canceled this year, I'm hoping to go again. If not, then next summer. But Steubenville is an absolutely incredible one. And the Midwest Catholic Family Conference, which has been canceled this year, unfortunately. But I've given talks there, and I've had a booth there. So that is one of my favorite ones. And then lastly, NCYC, which I went to in November and I was lucky enough to give a talk there, but NCYC was absolutely incredible, and I'm looking to go there every 2 years right now, but then every year, so I'll get to go there 3 times, which is awesome. So yeah, I'd say those 3 are my top: Steubenville, Catholic Family Conference, and NCYC. Next is, the hardest thing is when they say it's not in the Bible, but they don't have the same books as we do, right? So the thing with that is they say that the Catholic Church removed a lot of books, and that's not true. It's that other Christian denominations went in and added books, which we do not do. We don't sit there and just remove books, right? So something that it was the other Christian denominations who removed the books from the Bible. And so we don't do that. We don't sit there and remove books. So something that I would say to that is, I would say, correct. It does not say the name purgatory in the Bible. Nowhere does it say the word purgatory. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, and that doesn't mean that it references it. In fact, we don't even need the Bible. It just makes logical sense for it to exist with an all-merciful God, right? So that's something that I would say. I would say just because it doesn't say the name purgatory in the Bible doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I would also say it doesn't say the name chocolate chip cookie in the Bible, but that doesn't mean that that doesn't exist, right? Okay, what else do we got? I am convincing a Baptist on church teachings. I think you just have to be careful with who you're talking to, and if they take it too far, you just need to tell them to stop. Exactly. That's why I don't get into online debates and online arguments, because it's not. I think it's just not a healthy form, and I think that they can go too far. That's why I think a civil, face-to-face discussion is the best way to go about it, because discussions can be healthy. So I think that that's the best way to go about it. What else do we have? I might be missing some. Okay, what is a sin you see yourself commit every day, and how do you plan to resist the temptation to do so in the future? Well, saying a sin I commit every day is pretty, it's fairly personal. So what I would say is, I'm not going to sit here saying I'm perfect. I'm absolutely not perfect, right? I do commit sins. All of us commit sins. And I try my best to refrain from it in whatever way. So I'm not going to name the specific types of sins I commit. However, what I will say is I do sin just like everybody else. But in order to resist the temptation to sin, I know whenever I feel any sort of temptation, the number one thing that I do is say, Jesus, I trust in you, right? Whether it's under my breath, whether it's out loud, whether I'm thinking it in my head, just a little Jesus, I trust in you is just so important to remember. So that's what I would suggest doing if we're ever in that scenario, right? Do you believe there is no salvation outside the church? So if you mean that, do you believe that only Catholics get to heaven? I absolutely do not. I believe that God is all merciful, and I'm not one to sit here and say this group of people gets to heaven, this group doesn't, this group of people gets to heaven, right? Absolutely not. That is completely up to God. And in my opinion, I think the Catholic Church is the best way to be saved, right? But that doesn't mean that people outside the Catholic Church aren't, right? It all comes down to God, and it's not up to me to say. So I absolutely do not believe that. However, I believe the Catholic Church is a way to be saved and to get into heaven. So that's why I'm a proud Catholic, right? So I do not believe that there's no salvation. I believe that it's up to God. Okay, I'm not... we're not going to respond to that specific one. Again, I have about 23 minutes. That was very specific. About 20 minutes. If you guys want to ask some more questions, it can be, again, about my ministry, about a video I've done, about a theological virtue. Says, thank you for doing this Q&A. I really love listening to you speak. Thank you. What is one thing you can do better to better your relationship with God during quarantine? One thing you can do to better your relationship with God during quarantine. This is a question that I love, right? Because we have a lot of extra time on our hands right now, and sometimes an excuse that we can use to not pray as well. I don't have enough time to pray, right? I'm super busy. I have all these things to do. Well, how about now? Now we're all stuck in a house, right? Most of us are, at least. So we have that time. And I think the one thing that we need to do to better that relationship with God is not spend all our time just watching Netflix and listening to music and all that we might end up doing during quarantine, right? But to spend extra time in prayer. And I know that sounds so simple and so cliche, and well, yeah, obviously. But I think that it is very important and very necessary to remember to spend that time in prayer, because God should be our priority above everything else, right? Obviously, we need a little time for that Netflix here and there, but when it's taking up more time than it is God, that's when it becomes a problem, right? So we need to put God first, and that's what we can do to better our relationship. Okay. Okay, what else do we have? Do you have a call to the priesthood? That is a question that I received a little earlier. Right now, I don't like to answer those questions specifically, like yes I do, no I don't. Right now, it's whatever God wants, and again, opening and listening for the vocation. It's just whatever God wants, and again, just like all of us, we're praying about the vocation, right? So yeah, I would say that is the answer to that one. Okay. Do we have any other questions on here? What am I trying to say? Okay, do we have... Sorry, for a sec I thought the audio was messing up. We're good. So again, I have about 20 more minutes if you want to ask some more. If not, then I can answer it. We're going to remove these
Just stop.
really quickly.
Don't worry about
So it's the name on the chat. Because I do know that we have some younger people watching this. So if we could just keep it more so appropriate. Okay, we got a couple more questions. If I can pray to God about anything I want, what is the purpose of praying to saints and Mary and asking them to pray for me? Okay, so that's a good question, actually. And I want to specify something that gets confused and a misconception about the Catholic Church is that we pray to Mary and the saints. And we do absolutely not. We do not worship Mary. We do not worship the saints, despite what other Christian denominations might think the Catholic Church does. We do not worship the saints. We pray through the saints. And you see, the thing is, it's not just one of those things where we can ask God for whatever we want, right? He's not a genie, right? We might pray to him for help. We might pray to him if we want something, but to be honest, the answer isn't always going to be yes, right? But again, we do not pray to Mary or the saints. We pray through them. It's the same thing as asking a friend to pray for you, right? Have you ever asked for a friend, hey, can you please pray for me right now? I really need the prayers. It's the same thing as with Mary and the saints, right? Saint, I don't know, I'll just name a random saint. St. Thomas Aquinas, pray for us, right? It's just like that, asking a friend to pray for us. So we do not worship the saints. We do not worship Mary. We pray through them, and so there's a clear distinction there. Do you believe it is a sin to do excessive work on Sunday, the Lord's Day? And do you believe that it is a sin? Well, it's one of the 10 commandments to keep holy the Lord's Day. I mean, the Jews go all out, right, with the Sabbath and not even pushing an elevator button. And so if there's a difference between if it's necessary, because it says unnecessary survival work, right? So if it's necessary that we have to do something on a Sunday, that's not a sin. However, if we're just doing work that's unnecessary, then I don't think that's right? So there's a clear distinction there. You would make an awesome priest from what I can tell from your videos. Thank you. Appreciate it, Catholic teen. How do you distinguish between God's voice and your thoughts? Ooh, this is a really good question. I've actually experienced it. And I've actually experienced that in NCYC in Steubenville. That was something that I was really contemplating, especially in Steubenville this past year. I was one of those things where I was waiting to hear God's voice, and I was thinking, I was like, is that God's voice, or is that me thinking? And so I think the clear separation, here's the distinction, okay? If you're sitting there praying, and you're thinking to yourself, is that God's voice, or is that me thinking? Then it's you thinking, okay? But if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, that's God's voice, then that's God's voice. It's one of those things where if you know, you know. If you know, you know. If you're unsure about it, then I would say most of the time that's going to be your own thoughts, right? But hearing God's voice is something you will hear in your heart, and it's one of those things where when you hear his voice, when you know it's him, then you know. You know, it's sort of one of those things that we don't really question, that we hear his voice and we know. And so I think that's a clear distinction that we have to make in how we separate the two. How do you love those that say blasphemous things about our Catholic faith? Boundaries or simply pray for them? I know someone that used God's name in a blasphemous way, and he was serious. Okay, so how do we love those? So there's a clear distinction here. God tells us we have to love everyone, even our enemies, right? But that does not mean we have to like everyone. And there's a clear distinction. The definition of love is to will the good of another. That's what love is. To like someone is to want to spend our time around them and want to talk to them and want to be friends with them, right? We don't have to do that with everyone, but we have to love them. What that means is we have to will the good of another. So if that person who's saying blasphemous things against the Catholic Church is really just hurting you and getting to you, does that mean that you have to become friends with them, that you have to like them, that you have to spend time with them? No. But it does mean that you have to will the good of them, that you have to say, you know what, I don't like what this guy's saying, but I hope wherever life takes him, it's good, and I hope that he finds God. You know, you have to will the good of them and pray for them. And we just have to have that strength and that courage in us to do so, right? This doesn't mean that we have to spend our time around them. This doesn't mean that we have to be friends with them, but it does mean that we have to love them. And so I think there's a clear distinction there when talking about that. Okay, I'm kind of confused.
Someone up above asked you to talk about Exodus.
Talk about
relevance
Exodus.
today, a certain passage. You missed that question, but like I don't think you know that.
Yeah.
passage.
Okay, so
this person
I did.
responded to.
Okay, I got it. I was kind of confused there. Thank you. I missed the question above. There's a lot coming in. So with that, again, I wish I had the whole Bible memorized. That'd be really cool. But I don't know that verse specifically, and I don't know that passage. But thank you to J.C. Penney for answering. Okay. How should I, as a Catholic, respond to someone who asks if I've been saved or born again? Well, not born again. The thing is, with baptism, we are saved from original sin. And so other Christian denominations believe that they can just go up and profess that they believe, and then they're saved and they automatically get into heaven. What we believe is faith and works, right? Because the Bible tells us specifically you do not get to heaven by faith alone. So we are saved from original sin at baptism because we have that original sin on our soul passed down from Adam and Eve. Really gotta fix that through what was I saying? Through original sin and through baptism, that original sin is erased from our soul. And so we are not born again, but it's also not one of those things where we're just saved and automatically get into heaven. We believe in faith and works instead of just faith alone, because it's both that gets us to heaven. And so it's really, we've been saved from original sin, if that's what you are referring to. So we have a little bit more time. If you have some more questions, if not, that's great. Again, if you're watching the replay, then if you want to even email me some questions that you might have, or go to kid.catholic on Instagram and message me some questions that you might have, then I'm happy to answer it that way if you're not on the live stream right now. For those of you who are on the live stream, if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer, again, about my ministry, about any theological teaching that you might have. And it's a little slow here, so I'm going to give a couple minutes. If not, then I can go ahead and wrap it up, and I'm going to give a couple minutes in case there's any last questions that we might have. Okay, here's one. In the Bible, doesn't it say that baptism is being born again? I'm a little confused on what you're saying.
That's because Protestants believe
yeah.
it's confusing. So
my mom has a master's in theology,
you may not be super knowledgeable on being saved
because,
and born again.
Because the thing with being saved and being born again is it's what Protestants believe, and I'm not familiar with everything Protestants believe because I'm a Catholic, right? So I'm not familiar with everything Protestants believe, so I'm not, again, entirely sure what you're asking there. Here's another question. Why can't women be priests? Is there a specific reason? Actually, yes, there is. If you look in the Bible, the apostles, the 12 apostles were all men, right? And a lot of people say that this is discriminatory against women, and no, the thing is there are places for women in the church right now. Like now, after Vatican II, women can be lectors, things like that. But men are priests because the 12 apostles are all men, and they were all priests. And for the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church, it has always been men. And so I think that that's an important differentiator, and the call for women is the sisterhood, right? It's not like women just can't have a vocation, they have to become a mother. No, absolutely not. There are many women who are called to the sisterhood and being a nun, which is absolutely incredible, and is their religious vocation that we need to pray for them on, because that is a form of prayer. But men should be priests because, and only men, because, again, just like the 12 apostles, they were all men, and God obviously did that for a reason, right? But women are called to the sisterhood. Sisterhood. I don't know if that's what I've called it. So again, a couple last call for questions. Thank you all so much for the questions you asked. I got a lot more than I thought I would. There have been a lot of questions in here, a lot of really good questions about my ministry, about theological teaching. So thank you guys very much. Again, I'll give it a minute or two for some last questions. If not, then I will wrap it up. Stay tuned this Tuesday, 9 a.m. every Tuesday, right, for another video. And okay, here we go. Here's a good question. I think it's long. So, would you be willing to do a reaction video on music videos about God's existence? People make music about how they are unsure of God's existence and bring up some popular arguments on both sides. I actually didn't know that was a thing. There are like music videos about that. Again, A lot of times I do reaction videos on like popular like current topic videos that might be out there right now. So if there's one that gains some traction, then why not? Right now I don't have like again all my videos planned, but it's something that I'd be willing to do if there was one. I'm being honest, I didn't really know that was the thing that people did. I guess I need to stay more caught up with that. Yeah, good question. I should come do more of these. I agree. Hopefully we can keep doing a couple more Q&As. This has been awesome. Thank you guys so much for asking your questions. You got a lot of awesome theological questions, got a lot of awesome questions about my ministry, so thank you all so much. If you want to do me a favor, okay, because I saw recently that a lot of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you could click the red subscribe button, it's free super quickly. And if you don't have a Gmail account, you can just sign up for one super quickly, completely free. Click the red subscribe button, and then you can get notified when I come out with a new video if you click the bell also. And please share this channel and video with your friends and family to get the word out about my ministry. We're almost to 4,000 subscribers, so if you all can help me get there, that would be awesome. Yeah, so thank you all so much for this Q&A. It looks like we're about out of questions. Again, if you're watching the replay, then you can email me or message me questions on Instagram. Okay, I just got one, so we're just gonna... Got two? Okay, we're gonna do two more questions. How do you feel about there being no confessions during this quarantine? It depends on the location, and it depends on the church. I think some churches still are doing confessions, drive-through confessions. But if a church is not offering confession, I think that it's really sad. Same as not offering the Eucharist that we're not allowed to have right now. So I do think that it's really sad, and I think that places need to start opening back up because those two sacraments are vital. Right? Okay, we're getting a couple. How would you go about telling your non-Catholic friend about God or invite them to Mass, right? Okay, that's a really good question. So the key with that is to not force it on anyone. We don't want to do the thing where we just go to someone and give them a homily, right? But again, we want to help people, and we want to get others to heaven because that's what God commands us. So we need to let them know, like, hey, I'm doing this for your good, right? Like, how about you just come to Mass with me? How about you just come to one Mass with me, right? Like, see what you think, right? To not force it on them, to let them know that we're doing this for them because we do care about them and we do love them. And the key is, like, a lot of people when they're trying to talk to someone about God, they're trying to like give a homily, right? And that isn't always the best way to go about it, even if it's just something as little as inviting them to Mass. Does your church do drive-through confessions? Wait, did I miss one? No, okay. Does your church do drive-through confessions? And we are doing confessions right now at our church, but again, it depends on the church and the location. Do you earn money for your videos? Not right now, I don't. I need 4,000 watch hours within the last year, and I'm not quite there yet. So no, I do not earn money for my videos, which I don't really mind because, again, that isn't like the main goal of this ministry. Next question. Do we as Catholics believe that Elijah went straight to heaven even though Jesus didn't open the gates of heaven until his resurrection? I didn't really know that was like a debate that some people believe that. What I've always believed is that the gates of heaven were closed until Jesus came down and let us in. So I didn't know that that was really like a thing that people talked about. So to that one I would say I'm not educated enough on that, right? Next, what do you think about Catholics having a non-Catholic boyfriend/girlfriend even if they love them? My parents got married and my dad was not Catholic yet. However, my dad converted to Catholicism, which is awesome, right? And I think that that is the prime example, the like healthy example, right? Because there have been others where a Catholic dates someone who's not and then the Catholic converts to being not, right? And that's when it's dangerous. But as long as the person is strong in their faith and willing to help the one they're dating with Catholicism, obviously not force it on them, right? But help them in whatever way possible. And as long as it doesn't lead them out of the Catholic Church, then I say that that's great. I mean, that's my parents, right? JCPenney is like the comment teacher right now. That's awesome. Thank you. So, okay. Last time I gave like a last warning for final comments, and then we got a couple more going in, so I'm going to give it a little more time, yeah. Do you watch Catholic Truth? I'm going to be honest, I don't think I've heard of Catholic Truth. I might have. Maybe if I've seen them, I've heard of them. But I don't think I've heard of them. If not, then 100% suggest you do. Great, I'll definitely check out Catholic Truth. Okay, so we'll give it a couple more minutes. I also kind of feel awkward in these couple minutes because I don't have anything to say. So that's why I'm like keep staring at the comment section, hoping that another one rolls in. Because I'm like, what do I say when I'm just sitting here waiting? Do I just not talk? I can't not talk, you know. Okay. So are you a trad or the other one? I don't know.
Traditional.
Traditional. Oh, thank you. I didn't know what trad meant.
Depends on how.
Well, yeah, like it depends on it. Like again, I don't like to give like too much of my opinion on here because some people will get upset and stuff like that. But it depends on like, because obviously I can't like go and listen to a Latin mass and make that my all-time mass. But it depends. I kind of have a mix at my church. Yeah, so it's more of a mix. So okay, so I think we are going to about wrap up. Again, if you're watching the replay, you can email me those questions or DM me them on Instagram. Thank you all so much for asking awesome questions on this live stream. I really appreciate it. We got a lot more than expected. Theological questions about my ministry, so thank you. Again, please subscribe. Thank you all for the first ever Q&A. I'll definitely do more of these. Thank you all so much for watching. So, yeah, I will see you guys on Tuesday. And hi, Brielle.